Well, good evening, everyone. Happy past resurrection Easter Monday. I am your hostess, Tanya Evans, always doing the mostest, and I would like to welcome you. I see you chiming in. Uncle Kev Williams is in the house on Instagram. Thank you so much for chiming in. But today, we just got finished going through the past weekend where it was resurrection weekend. Good Friday, Jesus Christ passed away. He was murdered, crucified on the cross. But on the third day, guess what? He rose. And I want to ask you the question of the day is, are you a part of God's plan? If you are chiming in on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you are chiming in at, we would like to welcome you. It's not just only me today. No, it is not. I am going to introduce to you my pastor, awesome man of God. I remember when I met him 5 years ago and he was introducing me to this amazing opportunity that you're going to hear briefly about tonight. I had to ask him, are you one of them lying pastors? But no, he's the real deal, Holyfield, and it has been the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. So if you are just chiming in, make sure you click like and click share. Grab your pen and paper because this man of God is always dropping nuggets everywhere he go. He is a pastor out of the fastest growing church in San Antonio. Shout out to my J Howe family. He is a husband, a grandfather, and no, he ain't a great grandfather yet, thank the Lord. I think he'll rip all his hair out if he had some great grandkids running around. But who am I talking about? None other than 3-star director, Pastor Mel Keys. Where you at, big bro? Come on into the room and grace us with your look, you done lost your hair. Them grandkids got you tied up. I'm surprised you got loose.
I feel like I got some great grandkids. I tell you what, the Lord is good though. His grace is
Yes,
more
he
than
is.
sufficient. Honored to be here. What a week, not a day. My God,
Yes,
Tanya, the
yes.
week. We had 3 days of Easter Bible Camp, as it was called. Shout out
Mm-hmm.
to Ambassador Mary, my beautiful bride, Lady K. And then right
Yes.
behind that, of course, the Resurrection Sunday service was off the chain. And
Yes, it
God
was.
just breathed on us. And I needed that breath myself. My God, it was
Amen.
tedious, but every sacrifice is worth it when we do it unto
Yes.
the Lord and in the Lord. So I want to thank you for all the sacrifices, all the attention. I got my beautiful cousin Adrian Davenport is in the building. Cousin, we got to catch up. Let's make it a point to do so. If you'll put it in my inbox, when's the best time that we can catch up? And we'll respond accordingly. Tell Greg I said hello. So, Tanya, I'm going to
Hey,
put you
Greg.
in the lobby. Don't go too far away. Thank you for all you do once again. The conversation tonight, y'all, is going to be real to the point here. Unlocking Sabbath secrets. That's right. Sabbath strategies for your marketplace ministry. Now, I want to tell you, I'm not really coming from a religious perspective, but it is a biblical perspective. And it's something for those, of course, who are believers. But even if you are not a believer, as I am, and unashamedly at that of the Lord Jesus, there's something that you ought to be able to glean from the words that are going to be shared and for the principles at large, because I believe that to most of us, we can see the universality of these principles. They're going to apply for everybody. In fact, not just everyone, but everything. We're going to look at this the best way we know how. Unlocking Sabbath secrets, Sabbath strategies for your marketplace ministry. I want to begin with the scripture, of course. I want to take you to the place found in the text, found in the scriptures that um, signified everything that will follow. The teaching from Israel to the New Testament church, all of it draws from this passage here, Genesis chapter 2. And as we read these few verses, and on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then when you go to the third verse, Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. That's where it all begins, y'all. And not only does it begin there, but we'll find that it ends there too. But I want to remind you what you probably already know. I hope you know this anyway. Kevin is in the building. God bless you, cuz. First Lady Leela is in the house, y'all. Much love to you. Amen. I hope that Resurrection Sunday was a blessing to all of you all, as it was to me on so many different levels. But look at this, y'all. Y'all know this. I know the audience that I see here. Y'all know this. God did not rest, y'all, because he was tired. God, number one, God doesn't get tired. He doesn't take naps. He doesn't need to take a break. No, not like that. He did not rest because he was tired. He rested because his intended work, it was completed, family. He rested, he ceased, because he wanted to create a harmony of what I refer to as cycles and seasons that would be perpetual. A 7-day cycle, and there were things that in that 7-day cycle that you'll see over and over and over again in so many different layers of our own human and earthly existence. Just as the function of work has a part, it plays a role, it has something significant that it does. The work has something significant to offer, but so does the cycle and so does the season, y'all, when we cease to work. There's a lot of emphasis today put on the grind. That's the work, right? I mean, work like you can't, like you done lost your mind. Just give it all. They say give it 300%, whatever. Just grind that thing out. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis put on that. But if there's no grace connected to that grind, we out of rhythm, y'all. We out of season. We out of harmony. We out of sync. We're not synchronized with the patterns that God has given us, even in the Sabbath. So there's a season for the work, no doubt about that, unquestionably. Paul would even write on one occasion that if a man don't work, that brother he ought to stay hungry. I'm paraphrasing, right? He gonna stay real hungry. His belly gonna be talking real loud because he's too lazy to work. We see that same principle all throughout the book of Proverbs. A lion is out in the street. The lazy man says. So he just don't want to do right. He don't want to work. So he's gonna be in lack. He's gonna be in need. A little sleep, a little folding of the hand. So these are the principles that we see in the scripture. But just like there's a time for work, y'all, there's a time to cease from working. And that's really the language, and that's really the principle that I'm going to be talking about tonight as we look at this unlocking the Sabbath secrets and Sabbath strategies for your marketplace ministry, if you are in marketplace ministry. Now, if you're not in marketplace ministry, I want you to understand that whole paradigm altogether. I'm going to go to Romans and share something with you. The book of Romans. Let me see. I think I might have that written down somewhere. If I don't, yeah, there we go. We'll mark it out for you. You'll at least have it as a reference. And I want you to go to this on your own. Here's what the word of the Lord says out of the book of Romans 14:5-8. One person esteems one day above another. Another esteems every day alike. Let each be fully convinced in his own mind. He who observes the day observes it to the Lord, and he who does not observe the day to the Lord, he does not observe it. He who eats to the Lord, for he who gives God thanks, and he who does not eat to the Lord, he does not eat and give God thanks. Verse 7, for none of us lives to himself, and no one dies to himself. For if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. Paul would write on another occasion to this church in the book of Colossians, 3rd chapter, I believe the 23rd. He would say, whatever you do in word or in deed, do it all to the glory of God. This is very similar a thought to that. God gave him this conviction. What it ultimately means, y'all, is sometimes we get down on the nitty bitty details, and because of our own customs, because of our own traditions, we try to make everybody like us, but we miss the forest for the trees. The whole point would really be not to make people like us, but to help people to become more godly, more like Christ. And sometimes because we were raised or we were reared this way, we were taught that way. We're operating in the faith. Faith comes by hearing by the word of God. So we're operating in a particular way, and not that it's right or wrong. It's just right for us because that's what we was taught. And it's not that it's wrong. We were taught that, and it's not bad doctrine necessarily. The bad part is when we try to make that universally to be applied for everybody. And there are some things, y'all, where God gives us the free will, some things, not all things, free will to decide for ourselves. There are some that one day is going to mean this, and then the others that days, it is what it is. So thank God for that day. I thank God for every day. But there are some days, some what we call holidays, holy days, they won't have the same meaning to everyone because we don't have the same customs. We don't have the same traditions. We don't have the same upbringings. Now, I don't want to get off too deep into some stuff that we can go off. It'll be a what they call a rabbit hole. Don't want to get off too deep into it. But trust me, there are some just by virtue of what they've been taught, what they've been trained on, what they've been reared with. Not that it's necessarily wrong, but the perspective is not right for every single person. God here recognizes the dignity of free will and volition. Can't make nobody, can't force nobody to observe something as holy unto the Lord, because when you're forcing them, guess what? It's no longer holy unto the Lord, whether that's a day or just about any other thing. So that's out of Romans chapter 14, 5 through 8. I believe that Paul is really giving us the idea, a stronger conviction that whatever we do is unto the Lord. And we need to keep him, because sometimes we could do stuff for people or through people or because of, groups of people, denominations, and still, not that it's necessarily wrong in itself, but really, if it's not unto the Lord, we miss it. In fact, let's get into the definition of what the word Sabbath. I think that will bring some value to you all. What does the word Sabbath mean? Cambria is in the building. That's my baby girl right there, y'all. Minister Carolyn, Elder Carolyn is in the building. The word Sabbath, Hebrew word, of course, Shabbat. It means literally, here's the translation, to rest, to cease from work. So you're ceasing, you're resting from your norm, from what your regular is. So your regular schedule, you're taking a break. You're going to cease from your regular schedule, from your regular routine, anything that's, in regularity to it, you're going to break that up, right? So Sabbath, really, when you look at it in essence, it is, and it depicts a resting. And when you go further, the book of Hebrews, we won't go too deep into it again, resting in such a way that rest, resting in God, resting in Christ, is trusting. It's an equivalent of trust. Because when you rest in something or you rest on something, it's to say that you trust that which you rest on or rest in. I don't think you would rest on anything or in anything that you can't trust. I mean, sit in a chair, you're implying by the fact that you sat there in that specific chair that you must have some trust with it. Maybe you've had some prior experience, some prior knowledge, or maybe you just took for granted. I don't know. But if you sat down on that thing, or you sat in that thing, or you laid in that bed, not only did you rest in it, but you rested in it because you trusted in it. It's very similar in the same way that we apply the Sabbath. We're resting, we're ceasing, we're breaking up some things specifically because our rest now, our trust now is in God, not in our effort, not in what we can do on our own, not what we think we're doing separate from God, but we're trusting God in such a way that God, by just resting in you, just abiding in you, just taking a break from my regular routine, my regular schedule, I'm putting it all in your hands. And as I put it in your hands, I trust that you can do better for me than I can do for myself. That's the principle that's being applied. And that's the principle that I think many times we miss. And I'm not just talking from the religious perspective, but we miss it in a lot of ways. And sometimes, beloved, we think of trusting as something passive. We think of it in such a way it can't be quantified because it's not so qualitative in terms of a measurement. You can't put an exact measurement, at least, you don't know the human heart. You can't put a measurement on it the same way that you would with something that's numerical. So it's qualitative in that, what's the word? I'm skipping the word. You can't, it's not logical. It goes against just logic by itself. It's more sometimes even in the spiritual realm and more sometimes even in the emotional realm. Trusting, but it's not passive. But because it's there, because it exists, just like wind. You don't see it, but you know it's there, because in its absence, you'll be in trouble. You don't see it, but you feel it. You'll be like, what's that? That was the wind, right? Trusting is not passive. It's invisible, but you gonna know it's there. Trusting is really obedience. It's really relying on God instead of ourselves. That's what it is. It's to the point where we trust God so much, we rely on God so much that we're willing to submit to his ability rather than our own. Now, for A-type personalities, for those who are always, come on now, got to be in control, got to always be in the driver's seat, got to know everything before you make a move, those persons they typically have a hard time following God at certain, once it gets past a certain threshold, it's no longer, because look, if I'm not in control, I got to manipulate, I got to make some changes, I got to do whatever, I got to maintain control. That person is going to have a hard time with Sabbath. That person is going to have a hard time with resting and ceasing, because we feel as though we always got to be moving. Come on, some of y'all know people, if it's not you always got, they call them busybodies, always got to be somewhere here, there, and everywhere. And sometimes in the approach and the effort to be here, there, and everywhere, you're nowhere, because we violated principles of Sabbath. No one can be here, there, and everywhere at the same time but God. He's omnipotent and omnipresent. We are not. So we got to make sure that we understand Sabbath principle is about trusting, not passively, but trusting that God can be in a place even when we're not. Well, I need to be there. Trust God. Abide in him. If you're really doing what he told you to do to the fullness of the capacity, the fullest extent that you can do what it is that he told you to do, listen, you do your best, God will take care of the rest. That's how that works. That's how the math works on that. Now, I got to make a note here. We often mistake, again, activity and even noise with productivity. Is it making sense to anybody below? I want to say it again. We mistake activity and even noise with productivity, right? Activity and productivity, however, are not the same. There are some people, and myself included, there are times in your own life you've been very active, but being active and productive are different. They're not necessarily in the same category, same league, not even on the same ballpark, playing field. Yeah, activity and productivity, they can be completely different. Make some noise, Well, sometimes you can make noise and it just be noise. Even noise by itself. Noise doesn't mean communication. Noise can be aggravation rather than communication. So not all noise is created equally. Now listen carefully. Just as in the case of the musical scale. Now, I'm no musician, but contrary to popular belief, I did take a class or two way back when. Now, I'm no good at it. I wasn't any good at it, but I do remember when they went over that musical scale and how it was filled with all kind of notes, this, that, and the other, and they told us how to play in this key, that key, so forth and so on. Listen, I remember that teacher, I think it was Miss Tate, if I'm not mistaken, one of them in particular, I had a couple, but one of them said, there's silence that needs to be taken into account as well. It's not just the playing of the keys, but the silence. There's intentional silence in the music. And the silence in the music is just as much a part of the music as what you hear in the chords, as what you hear from key to key. See, sometimes there's so much music that we miss out on because we have not learned to value the silence. Life will all offer us silence, and sometimes because we're so accustomed, it is our tradition to always hear so much noise and to be so active, we confuse again activity with productivity. And when we hear silence, it freaks us out. We get lost. We get scared. We get frightened in the silence. Man, if God don't answer that prayer quick, come on, y'all. Y'all remember Abraham and Sarai? Well, Abram and Sarai. Man, God didn't answer that prayer quick enough. And as a result, come on now, that's how Ishmael came into existence. Some of us have these Ishmael experience because the silence freaked us out. It scared us. It intimidated us. We didn't know how to handle the silence. We could handle the noise. We could handle any level or form of noise, but man, you let that silence come, we ain't heard nothing. Nothing's been said. We miss that music. But it's not just what we hear in the beat, y'all. The beat matters, but sometimes it's also what we don't hear in between the beat. Come on now. Can you hear in between the beat, in the silence of it all? Let me give you a couple of more examples, and we're gonna bring some things home here. Even, listen carefully, even a good thing in the wrong proportion will become a bad thing. Somebody write that down. Even a good thing in the wrong proportion will become a bad thing. In other words, too much of any good thing is still harmful. Man, look, y'all, I've been on my water. Come on. I've always loved water, but I've been drinking more intentionally. And I love water, but I also found out in my own study that depending upon your body chemistry and your health and so forth and so on, even though water is a good thing and each of us ought to drink a certain amount to make sure we stay hydrated, but you can even drink too much water. If you're in too much water, you might drown. But if you drink too much water, that can cause problems, even though water is essential. Food, come on, I ain't got to talk to you about this. Y'all know this. Too much food, it doesn't just make you bloated. Man, you could be more sick and unhealthy than you would ever want to be in your life. Too much food, y'all. Too much of a good thing, it can harm you. Let me give you another example. Talking and communicating. How many of y'all would agree that communication is great? Talking. Sometimes you know, talking things out. You don't always see eye to eye on everything. And sometimes we're afraid to disagree with someone. You know, oh Lord help us. Because we disagree with someone, now they're a devil. Because you had a disagreement. No, that doesn't necessarily mean because you had a disagreement that someone has to be an enemy. Come on, let's grow up. Let's get beyond that. Talking and communicating, y'all, is great. But if your communication doesn't sometimes give a space for silence, then at some point you'll get overloaded. You'll get confused in the multitude of words. You'll check out. You'll be like, wait a minute, it's just too much to process it. You done said a whole lot. You saying too much at one time, like food again. You can eat a certain amount of food at one time, but at a certain point, you're bloated. You're listening to too much at one time. You get bloated. Your mind, you can't process it. It's just too much at one time. So you got to space it out. There has to be intervals. Those intervals, that silence, that's that Sabbath principle. I'm talking principle. That's that break. Come on. That's taking a break. That's where you cease to do what's regular for you. Even in agriculture. Now, I'm way out my league here, but understand the math in agriculture. Where my farmers at? Some of y'all, what y'all know about a farm? Chandrella's in the building. Anybody know about a farm? Now, I've been on a few, believe it or not, from Brooklyn, New York. I've been on a few farms. I would go down south to my family. Shout out to all my family in North Kakalaki. I got my cousin Adrian. She's from Brooklyn too, but she went down there like I did to North Kakalaki. Tanya, you know what I'm talking about. And we would spend some time on different farms with some of the family members, so forth and so on. But I heard this and I read this, that in agriculture, farmers who know what they're doing, of course, they take care of the land in such a way that they rotate crops and they learn how to keep the soil more fertile and more rich by giving their earth a break. I'm gonna say it again. They make their soil more fertile and more rich by giving the earth, their farm, a break. In other words, when they sow back to back seasons, y'all, they don't get more crop. They don't get a greater harvest by sowing back to back. In fact, they experience what they call diminishing returns. But what they learn to do is take breaks on that soil, and by taking the right breaks in the right sequence, their harvest is, instead of minimized or reduced, is maximized. That's the principle of the Sabbath, y'all. In fact, every living thing that God created, every creature that he made, y'all, he made it in such a way, he created it in such a fashion, y'all, that it needs to be refreshed. From time to time, it needs to be replenished. It needs to be recharged. I mean, come on, think about your cell phone. You know how it was. You left your charger. You just well left your phone. Because what good is a phone without the charger? They go together. Some of us with that phone, but we don't have the recharger. The recharger, y'all, is that Sabbath, that break, that rest. When it comes to man, there's no exception to what God created in the earth, y'all. Breaks and periods of rest are universally needed and required. I mean, it's needed in your work. It's needed in your school, in your education. I'm going to mess some of y'all up. It's needed in your ministry. Hello. There's some folk in ministry. They better look. They are really, in truth, they're doing ministry, but they're not in ministry. What do you mean by that, preacher? I mean, they're doing it, but they're not in it. And the reason they're not in it, because their mind and their hearts are checked out a long time ago. Because they've not had the refreshing. They've not had the recharge. They just was like that phone without a charger. That battery done frizzled out. Come on. And even talking in relationships. Come on now. I love my wife. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. I know she loves me. But every now and again, y'all, we just look. We joke at each other. We just gonna play the quiet game. Hello. Sometimes, come on, grown folk. Yeah, I know you grown and you can talk and you can say this and you can say that and you can keep on going and you can push your point and you can make sure that you being heard. You do all that. But sometimes it's wise just to play the quiet game, y'all. Because even from the talking, you need a sabbatical. We're going to talk about that in a minute. In thinking, I need somebody to witness and tell me if they think this is right. Sometimes in our thinking, y'all, we need a Sabbath. Man, have you ever gotten to the point where your mind, you just need your brain to breathe? Put that in the comments if it's real for you. Sometimes I just need hashtag, I want my brain to breathe. You just want your brain to breathe again. It's like you inhaling or you exhaling, but you're not putting you're not putting a yin to the yang. You need both. Yeah, you taking it in, but you got to let it out, or you letting it out, but you ain't taking it in one way or the other. Something has to give. You have to have some space for your brain to rest. And sometimes if you kick that thing in overdrive, it'll go there. God is giving you this thing called adrenaline, and that thing will push it to another level, and it'll push it to another gear, and now you're in a higher gear. But at some point, once you hit that last gear, man, I know what I'm talking about, you're gonna crash and burn, baby. Even in your sleep, you can crash and burn. Well, I went to sleep, but you didn't get no rest. You went to sleep, but you woke up tired. You fought all night long, even though you were asleep. See, the only way we really experience true harmony is when the right things are in the right place and space, and the sequences are there to maximize their value. Let me wrap this up for you. In the words of the writer of Ecclesiastes, we believe it to be King Solomon, but it could have been one of his peers or such. He said there's a time and a season for everything under the sun. Do you know that included rest? There's a story of a woodcutter. Y'all probably heard the story, famous story of the woodcutter. He's very strong, broad shoulders, massive biceps, strong back, and this woodcutter, he man, he's in for a promotion, and he wants to impress his boss. And in order to impress his boss and be recognized, he got to put in the work, y'all. And let me tell you, there's nothing wrong, and there's something right with putting in the work, not something wrong. You got to put in the work. So he's ready to impress, and he's going to put in the work. And at first, he's the fastest woodcutter in the entire village. There's not a community for 100 miles of anybody that can keep up with this woodcutter. He's cutting that wood, and he's chopping that wood, and he's cutting down more trees, twice the amount of his closest peer, his closest competitor. However, he gets so busy, he gets so consumed, he gets so focused on the cutting down of the wood and the cutting and the chopping and the cutting and the chopping that he forgets to sharpen his axe. And days go by, and days become weeks, and weeks go by, and finally those weeks turn to months. And he noticed something, that the amount of the wood that this brother was about to cut and able to cut, the boss began to look at the amount of wood that was beginning to decline. And the man was under pressure now, and he began to work harder and harder and harder to try to cut the same amount of wood. But no matter how hard he tried, he felt and he saw that the amount of wood was in decline. His ability to produce decreased, even though his energy increased. The boss walked up to him, and he was no longer impressed, and he asked him the question, and that's what I got to ask you. When was the last time that you sharpened your axe? Whether you look at it from the spiritual or even the practical, the Sabbath I'm talking about is really an opportunity for you to be still enough and silent enough so that you can get the sharpest edge on everything that pertains to your life. Whether it's your calling, whether it's your ministry, whether it's your family, whatever the assignment may be, it will become very dull if all you do is grind, and then grind some more. You need some time for a Sabbath. I want to leave you with just a couple of other scriptures, and then I'm going to give you some principles, and I'm going to get Coach Tanya to come back in. Here's a couple other scriptures. I want you to write down Matthew 12, 9 through 14. Let me see if I can pull it up. Matthew 12, 9 through 14. Here's what Jesus says. Now, when he had departed from there, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man who had a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath, that they might accuse him? Then he said to them, what man is there among you who has one sheep? And if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not lay hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value then is a man than a sheep? Therefore it is lawful to do good on a Sabbath. Then he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and it was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees, they went out and they plotted against him, how they might destroy him. You know, there's some folk. Deacon Kev is in the building. Strenda Dorsey is in the building. Thank you for chiming in. There's some folk that might mean you no good. There's some folk that will try to tear you down. There's some folk that may even try to cause you harm, even when you try to do good on the Sabbath, y'all. But I want you to hear this. This is the word of the Lord, Mark chapter 2, verse 23 and 27. And that's my last verse, a passage I promise. Here it is. Now it happened that he went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and as they went, his disciples began to pluck the heads of grain, and the Pharisees said to him, "Look, why do they do what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" But he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he was in need and hungry, he and those with him? How he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar the high priest and ate the showbread, which is not lawful to eat except the priest, and also gave some to those who were with him. And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath." I'm going to give you 3 principles, and then I'm going to get Coach Tanya back on the screen and share a couple of videos with you and wrap this thing up. Principle number 1, y'all. I'm going to make it real practical for you. What are you doing in your life for some Sabbath getaways? Sabbath getaways. In fact, you could write this down. Another word for a Sabbath getaway, many people call those sabbaticals. Sabbaticals. That's where that word comes from. Sabbaticals. It comes from the root of the Sabbath, to break, to cease. You're breaking up that regularity. This is a principle that we miss, and because we miss the principle and this universal application, y'all, we missing the music. We missing the music because we can't hear the silence and we don't respect the silence. But your Sabbath getaway, your sabbatical, that's a time for yourself to be still, to be silent, so that you can heal, so that the dull edges of your soul can be sharpened and strengthened. You need a Sabbath getaway for yourself. You need Sabbath getaways for your spouse. You need Sabbath getaways for your family. If you're in ministry as you need Sabbath getaways for your core leaders. You got to live this principle so that you can even teach the same principle to them, because disciples make disciples, y'all. And if you're not being a good model and a good example of it, then even though you might be teaching it, because you're not living it, what you're living is so loud that what you're teaching doesn't make sense, and it's bringing chaos and confusion. You need Sabbath getaways and sabbaticals for friends. Come on, some of your most intimate relationships that you have, friends, siblings even. You want to take that thing to another level? You want to make the dull edges sharp again? Y'all go away and get it. A lot of y'all ladies, y'all know how to get away and do that stuff. Brothers, we messed up. We got it twisted, because sometimes we think it's sissified or whatever for brothers to go and hang out and do a thing. And man, you need to be refreshed. Some of my most quality relationships are with people brothers that I get to spend certain Sabbaths with. Now, maybe that Sabbath, that sabbatical, it doesn't always have to be a long period. Sometimes it might be lunch, dinner, a movie. Come on. Start with the simple stuff. But you need some Sabbath getaways in your life. You need some sabbaticals. You need some breaks. You need to cease from the monotony of just doing it over and all your life, over and over, just 7 days, another 7, another 7. And man, you're not going to heal yourself. You're going to hurt yourself. And the poet said, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Sabbath getaways. Coach Tanya is going to talk about some of those. But then Sabbath income. I want to talk to you real quick. Sabbath income. I call that residual income. What do I mean by Sabbath income? Because we think that the only time you can make money is when you're at work. Man, who lied to you? Who duped you? Who pulled the wool and then the steel wool at that over your eyes? Who gouged out your eyes and told you that lie? Man, in fact, the wealthy, they don't make money because they're at work. Work is working for them, whether they're at work or not. It doesn't matter where they are. They've learned the principle of Sabbath income, that income, wealth can be produced. It can be created even when you're sitting still. Wealth can be created even when you're quiet. You ain't got to be telling everything to everybody. Everything ain't for everybody. Trust me, it ain't. Sabbath income, residual income, where God can replenish, God can restore, God can recharge, God can replace, not even replace. God can take your stuff, your income to a whole new level. Sabbath income, y'all, residual income. Deuteronomy talks about how the people of God, they were going to be blessed, and God was going to give them land that they, listen, it was going to be land and cities and houses. They didn't build it, but God was going to give it to them. They're going to get access to wells that they didn't dig and vineyards that they didn't plant. They were going to benefit monetarily through things that they didn't necessarily do with their own hands. I know I'm right about it, y'all. You say what you want, but you need some Sabbath income. If all you've learned to do was make income from a 9 to 5, whatever your hours are, you missed the mark badly. Isaiah talks about in the 45th chapter about treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places. God has some treasures in secret places, y'all. Proverbs 8:12 talks about witty inventions, y'all. There's some stuff that, man, God might give you if you don't let your mind go too dull and you remain sharp and vibrant to the Lord. He can give you one idea, one invention, one whatever. It could be a song, it could be it could be anything that's creative from the Lord. He can give you one thing, and it can not only change your whole life, but it can change a generation of people. Yeah, his ideas are better than our ideas. And if all you got is good ideas, swap all of those out for a God idea. That's Sabbath income that will create residuals, where you're getting paid not just on the fact that you clocked in. You might be clocked out more than you clocked in, but you're still getting paid. I'm going to give you this last one, then I'm going to leave you alone. Been here too long. Sabbath conversations, y'all. Lisa is in the building. Let me know if this is making sense. Sabbath conversations. Come on now. With yourself. Talking to God is important. Talking to God is essential. But sometimes you got to have a one-on-one with yourself. Sabbath conversation. That means you got to rest your mouth. That means you got to stop your tongue. Sometimes you talk too much. And what we tend to do, we normalize things that are wrong, but we call the things that are wrong right simply because we've been doing them for a long time or saying them for a long time. Could I help you with something? Just because you've been saying it for the past 50 years, don't make it right, don't make it true. Rest your mouth. Stop your tongue. Stop talking so much. Sabbath your conversation. Cease. Rest. Choose, watch this, choose a Sabbath in your conversation rather than a sabotage. See, we're going to choose one or the other. If we're not careful and prayerful, we will either choose Sabbath or we would choose sabotage. And maybe some of us have sabotaged ourselves immensely because we've not respected the Sabbath. I wish I had more time, but I don't. So I'm going to play a video, and in this video, and then I'm going to bring Coach Tanya in. I want y'all to hear this. We got some great things going on. We got some events coming up. I'm going to share this with you real quick. 2 videos back to back. And after I share those, Coach Tanya, I'm going to put you in the ballpark. Let me just share it with you. Here it is right here. Look at this one first.
Father's favorite family, this is Pastor Mel, founder for Going Places. And it's past time for your voice to be heard. You waited and wasted enough time. Your message has got to get out.
Somebody say going places. Going places. Somebody shout going places. Going places.
See, you've been called to far greater places and spaces than your block, your street and local neighborhood. And I have an unction that you too have been called to the nations. This much I know. The reason that God gave you that gift inside of you was to make room for you and to take you before great men and women so that He could get the glory while you tell your story. I also know for a fact that so many of us have that greatness in us, but we lack a solid coach to give what I needed for myself so many years ago and had to struggle for, like the strategy, the systems, and the structures to help stir up and release that greatness that God placed inside of you before you were even born. Well, welcome to Going Places, your specially designed 5-day virtual relaunch challenge hosted by yours truly. Get ready for your opportunity and put you more on point, not only with your purpose, but with some profit.
For you to understand what I'm about to share with you, you must first understand the size and magnitude of comparable markets. For example, the oil and gas industry pumps 96.4 million barrels of oil every single day. This generates $13 billion per day, $4.7 trillion per year. 10 of the wealthiest people in the world have come from the oil and gas industry. Imagine you owned an oil well that pumped out this liquid gold every day, allowing you and your family to make money every month, whether you worked or not. Unfortunately, most of us missed that opportunity. But what if you could tap into an industry that is currently twice the size as oil? What if that industry was growing at a rate of 50% and predicted to hit $15.5 trillion by 2033, making it 3 times bigger than the oil industry? What if you were aligned with a company bringing a new concept to that industry, allowing consumers to save as much as 60% compared to all the competitors? What if you could get started for virtually nothing, and your initial goal was to simply register people for free on a website where they can buy the product that they are already buying, but at a price that would save them money every time they purchased? Maybe you missed the oil boom, you missed the computer boom, and the internet boom. But that doesn't mean you have to miss the travel boom. Travel is the one thing that most people dream of doing. For most, it's a passion. And we are bringing a new model to this industry. A model that will disrupt the billion-dollar companies that currently monopolize it. A model that will allow people to do the one thing they've always dreamed of doing at a price they never knew was possible. And you can create residual income by partnering with us and sharing our travel savings. So get back with the person who shared this video with you and ask how you can find out more, because the next big thing just knocked on your door.
Baby girl, I want to take the remaining amount of our time for you to wrap it up and kind of put a bow on top, make it make sense if there was anything confusing or that didn't add up the way I wanted it to. Kind of bring it together for us. Sometimes I might have missed some stuff that unintentionally left out. We got Susan Jean Luis is in the building. My beautiful beloved cousin. Good to see you. We need to connect or reconnect, I should say. Georgia Stone is in the building, and First Lady Kendra is in the building as well. Coach Tanya, did anything speak to your soul as it relates to the Sabbath?
Oh wow, this whole I didn't know. I knew you was gonna drop some nuggets like you always do, but I didn't know that you was gonna deep fry the nuggets and make them better than the chicken nuggets. I was thinking about the Sabbath getaways that you mentioned. Man, I done took 77 Sabbath getaways using the platform that we use. You know, you just can't lose with the tools we use. I mean, I've been to Dubai for $49 for 7 days. I've been to Cairo, Egypt for 5 days, $299. I've been to Montego Bay 3. Like I said, I took 77 vacation. A couple of them, we spent some time together, UI and Lady K. Matter of fact, I did my first cruise with you guys. So I mean,
never will forget it. Never will forget it.
I was resting on all those business trips, you know, because I've been through a lot of trauma and everything. I see you, Philip Chase is in the house. I see you trying to
My main man, Philly is in the house.
Oh, the Sabbath income. Oh my goodness. who doesn't want to get? I remember my life before Travorium and my life now. I wake up every morning with extra money in my bank account, and there's always room for more. So that
Hello.
Sabbath income, the Lord increased my territory. He did
Hello.
just that when he gave me and blessed me with this business. And the Sabbath conversations, now that was a good one right there, because I've being connected with this company, being a part of this business, being a part of this family has allowed me to literally change the way I talk to people. When people rub me the wrong way, I ain't quick to snatch nobody no more. I just let them know in the nicest way possible. No, Suge, you shouldn't do that. But I mean, my conversation, my walk, it's just everything is transformed me. The people that I'm meeting on this journey, I'm learning stuff that I'm 48 years young. I'll be 48 years young. I know I don't look at y'all, but I'll be 48 years old. And I just found out what fasting was. So, I mean, I'm learning so much, and it's all to become a better person. But at the end of the day, this is something that I wanted to do since third grade. I mean, I joined the military just so that I could travel, and didn't get a chance. Got a lot of other mess, but didn't get a chance to actually do any traveling. And 5 years with this company, 77 vacations, and a whole bunch of brothers and sisters that when my family, my relatives, the ones that's connected by DNA, when they ain't acting right, I can always call on my big brother Mel and First Lady K. If I don't want to talk, I may have things that I can't talk to you about, I can call First Lady K about. But it's no judgment. It is, I mean, it's everybody is like-minded individuals, all with the same common goal to be better in life and to see the world. I mean, I've just been watching the series called Chosen, and that's I'm a very visual person. So to see Jesus, so even though I know the story to be true, I know who died for me and rose on the third day for me, so I know him to be true. Just like he was talking about, when the wind blow, we can feel the wind, but we can't see it. Just like when it's hot outside, like it was 95 degrees today. I didn't see no heat, but I seen the things waving in the car because the car was on fire. So I mean, this joy that I have now, I can honestly say the world didn't give it to me, and the world definitely can't take it away. And we getting ready to get ready for our faith leaders call. So if you want to hear about the opportunity at hand, I put it in the chat, but I'm going to give you the Zoom ID number. It is 851-8208-4922. And you have to get back to the person that shared this on their page to get that password, because that way we can share this information in its entirety. You can get your questions answered. And man, one more thing I wanted to touch bases on. My favorite artist is Shekinah Glory. Never in a million years did I ever think I was going to ever be able to meet not only the producer, but the writer, the vision maker for Shekinah Glory. Praises what Apostle H. Daniel Wilson. I didn't know, and he is one of our business partners, and he ran from Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, listen, dreams are definitely coming true. I have, this type of life that I'm living right now. I mean, it's only a God sin. So for everybody that's watching, get back to the person that invited you to share this information with you, and get on our Faith Leader Zoom call at the top of the hour. Again, the number is across your screen, but if you a little reading impaired, let me say it for you. The Zoom ID is 851-8208-4922. And who knows, we'll be able to see you we'll get you to the beaches and the banks, but we're trying to get you to both. So see you next time, next Monday, same time, same bat channel. And we love you like fried chicken with gravy on the taters. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We love you guys.
Father's favorite family.